All right. How's everybody doing? Glad everybody could be here. Today, we're going to be going over the basics of nutrition coaching and how to aim your habit artillery at the fortified position, not the sniper in the trees. So the point of this lesson is to really get people to understand that when you're undertaking a new nutrition-based program, in order to get to a certain goal, it's really important to look at the large big picture rather than the smaller picture, hence the sniper in the trees. So here we go. Who am I and why should you listen to me? So I'm a Canadian Armed Forces veteran, 15 years with the Canadian Grenadier Guards, and I deployed to Afghanistan in 2010. I'm also a certified personal trainer, precision nutrition level 1 coach. And I have a background in chemistry and biology, and I was formerly a high school science teacher. So I had a lot of practice teaching basic biology. Additionally, I'm a dad, husband, have another little girl on the way. And I summon my inner Dwight Schrute as a beet farmer every summertime. Additionally, I'm a published author, just published the book, The Nimble Warrior, and I'm a CrossFit cult member. So yes, I have drunk the purple Kool-Aid of CrossFit. I love it. And it's something that just really gets me going. So by the end of this webinar, you will learn about my easy to implement FPT nutrition plan, have a proven method to establish a nutrition-based goal, and learn the 3 most effective nutrition-based habits to focus your energy on. So the way we're going to break this down is, the first thing is we're going to establish how to establish a proper nutrition-based goal, which is the SMART method. Then we're going to identify the big 3 nutrition targets, which are calorie balance, macronutrient consumption, and nutrient density. So here's a mantra that some wise trainer once said to me, and I've heard it numerous times over the course of many years: you can't out-train a bad diet. So what does this essentially mean? This means that good luck trying to get yourself to that ultimate goal that you've set out for yourself, whether it's increased muscle mass or decreased body fat, simply by exercising alone. Okay, it's a myth that you need to train harder to lose weight. So I want that to sink in a little bit. The first thing to do, first and foremost, if you want to lose weight, if you want to lose body fat, is to focus on your diet. Yes, exercise is important. I'm not saying it's not, but nutrition is primordial. So what's the deal with nutrition? Why is it so hard to kind of get sorted? Well, the things that hold us back, we have information overload. So talking to a lot of clients, most of them have an idea of what's out there. Many people have heard of ketogenic diets, paleo diets. These are all fine and dandy, but they're very specific. They target a very specific group of people that are looking for something specific to set their sights on. Not everybody can follow something like a ketogenic diet. If you don't know what that is, that's okay. What I want to do here is demystify things. So additionally, when people are undertaking a new nutrition diet plan, they seem too restrictive. A lot of people think that as soon as you begin a new nutrition plan with a coach, automatically it's going to mean no beers, no cake, get rid of everything in your house. You're only eating broccoli and chicken for the next 3 months. And that's not the case. And lastly, time. So there's no time to either make food, prepare food, or just simply go to the grocery store. So we fall back to our old habits. So how do we get started with the FPT method? So the FPT method stands for the fist, palm, thumb method. So the simplest thing to do is just drill down to the simplest habit. And that could be as easy as drinking water. Don't put any restrictions on the food that you eat. And it only takes about 15 minutes per day to implement. Okay, so the long and short of it is find something that's really easy to accomplish, add it into your day. Do that for 2 weeks, then add something else. If it's just water, good on you. Next thing is to add really, really highly nutritious foods and keep on going from there. I'm going to give you an example of what the FPT method is in the next slide. So once we establish that we need to sort ourselves out with respect to nutrition, in order to accomplish any goal, we need to define them. So in this case, we use the SMART goal methodology. So the SMART goal methodology is an acronym. It stands for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely. So if you're going to set out a SMART goal for nutrition, let's say you have a goal of wanting to lose 5 pounds. Now, based on what we know now, that it needs to be specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely. If I say I want to lose 5 pounds, is that a SMART goal? So the answer is no, simply because it's missing a few of the components. Mostly it's missing the time component, and how much time do I give myself to actually accomplish this? And then, is it attainable and relevant? So that's important to establish as well. So something like losing 5 pounds, okay, I'm going to assume that it's 5 pounds of fat. So therefore, now we're getting more specific. Well, how am I going to do that? Well, I'm going to go to the gym 4 days a week. Cool. I'm going to establish a very strict nutrition plan that is going to increase my body mass. Okay, now we're looking a lot more specific. And then, is it relevant and attainable? Well, to ensure that that's the case, if I say I want to lose 5 pounds of body fat in 1 week, okay, now we're looking at something that is a lot less attainable. Is it relevant? Potentially. Okay, but if I say I want to lose 5 pounds of body fat in 2 months, okay, now we're talking a little bit more attainable. So now we can adjust that time frame. And so all these things relate to a really, really good SMART goal. And this is what a good coach is going to be able to do for you. So when we look at the calorie balance, how do we do that? So this is traditionally the hardest thing to do for anybody getting into a new routine with respects to nutrition, because we have a lot of established preconceptions and notions on how to eat because we've done it our whole lives. So when somebody comes up to you with a whole bunch of new ways to actually put food in your face, it comes off as kind of preachy, and it could affect you in a way where it seems like it's disrupting your belief system. So calorie balance is really the place to start. So before we start looking at the small little ingredients that are included in the food that we buy, before we start trying to tweak anything else, we need to look at calorie balance. So you cannot simply just decide I'm going to lose 5 pounds and not actually look at your calorie balance. And so now we need to do some math. So essentially, there's 3 different ways that you can adjust your calorie balance, and 3 ways that you can basically live your life and not lose your mind. I think most people look at the hardest possible thing to do, which is level 3, and think that, oh my God, I'm going to have to weigh every bit of food for the rest of my life. I'm going to shoot myself. But that's not the case. So if we look at level 1, this is where I start all my clients, which is the FPT method. So fist, palm, thumb. So if you look down at the bottom, an example of the fist, palm, thumb method is right there. So a serving of protein is 1 palm, and it's about a deck of cards thick. For vegetables, it's 1 fist. For carbohydrates cooked, it's 1 cupped hand. And for fat, it's 1 thumb, or roughly half a tablespoon. So that's pretty simple. If we're looking at something like a level 2, that's where we have fist, palm, thumb method, plus occasional food weighing to see if we're on track. I'd recommend about 1 to 2 times a week, no more. And then level 3 is where people really get scared if they've never done something like this before and think that they're going to have to do it the rest of their lives, where you're exclusively food weighing. So why would somebody do level 3? Well, if they're a competitive athlete, if they have a really aggressive SMART goal with respects to body fat loss or muscle mass gain, they're going to have to monitor their macronutrients. And we'll look at what macronutrients are in the next set of slides very, very, very closely. 99% of humanity will fall into level 1. because this is maintainable and this is sustainable over the long term. Once you learn it, you'll be set for life. So every one of those portion sizes there will be maintained over the course of your life, whenever you have a meal, whenever you have a snack, and that'll maintain a proper caloric intake. And you'll notice it's significantly easier once you do it for a few weeks. So what do they look like? On the left, we have just a simple setup for women, and this gives you approximately the right amount of calories on average for any average woman. So this is about 15 to 1800 calories at most a day. And on the right, you can see the proportions for men are basically double. So this gives you around 21 to 2300 calories a day for a man. Now, if you're increasing your training volume, if you're doing a lot more than the average human being when it comes to activity, then these are going to have to change. But for an overwhelming majority of people, this will do just fine for the rest of your life. So take this in mind when looking at having to adjust your caloric intake. When you start looking at your food intake, some of you might notice you might not even be getting this bare minimum. So I really recommend that when you're starting out, this is the first place to start. Am I actually getting the right amount of food? And believe it or not, a lot of people actually don't consume enough food. And that's kind of surprising for most people. So the next topic we're going to tackle is macronutrient consumption. So again, if we're looking at establishing a new nutrition plan, we have to look at the macronutrients. So if you guys remember your grade 9 science, probably don't, but lucky for you, I am a grade 9 science teacher. So we have the 6 following types of nutrients. And if anybody can chime in on the chat and give me one, that'd be pretty sweet before I go over it. No. Carbohydrates, fats, protein. Okay. And then we go into the micronutrients. We have vitamins, minerals, water. Okay. So without all of these, we die. You need to get a full spectrum of these into you throughout the course of the day. And whenever any of these get out of balance, our bodies get out of balance, our metabolism gets out of balance. So it's really important to maintain these levels at all times. What we're going to focus on today are the macronutrients, which are carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. So what essentially should you eat? Well, for protein, anything meat-based, okay? That's a very, very solid form of protein. Now, for those of you that are more, veggie-based, those of you that want to follow more of a vegan diet or more of a plant-based diet, these proteins probably won't fit into your diet plan. So where do you find your protein? Well, soy products have a lot of protein. You're going to also have to ensure that on the right, you can see carbohydrates, beans, and lentils. They're mostly carbohydrates, but they do have quite a bit of protein. Same with quinoa. It does have quite a bit of protein. But one thing you're going to have to worry about is your amino acid profile. So if you don't get the 21 essential amino acids from your food, then you're going to become very nutrient deficient and can lead to problems. Whereas if you're eating meat, you're going to get those 21 essential amino acids all the time. So something to take into consideration if you're deciding to go into a plant-based diet is your amino acid profile. So a very simple way to get your amino acids is look at some of the traditional diets that are found around the world. If you look at the South Americans, beans and rice. Beans and rice is a combination because it naturally combines all the essential amino acids in one dish. Okay, so they're very wise in the way that they're putting their meals together. If you look at the Middle Eastern food, they have hummus and a lot of unleavened bread. Put those together and you usually get all of your amino acids in there as well. So keep that in mind if you're switching to a plant-based diet. So if we look over to the far right, we can see the fats. Fats are traditionally neglected because they're seen to be as kind of the evil monster of nutrition, but in reality, they really help with hormone regulation. Good fats are essentially important. Avocados, extra virgin olive oil. Avoid at all costs processed fats. So processed fats are any of the fats that we use, like cooking oil. Try to stay away from them as much as possible, because what they'll do is they'll have a disruptive effect on gut health, because they're very hard to digest. And how much should you eat then? Well, pretty simple. If we're looking at macronutrient levels for their, let's just say the average human being, I always start with the ratio that I have over on the right, which is 30% protein, 30% fat, and 40% carbohydrate. So the reason for this is that if you take in a little bit more protein, you're going to have what's called a thermogenic effect. And they did a lesson on this, and it's posted on YouTube. And the link is here in the actual presentation, and I can share with you that later. Essentially, protein will help increase your metabolism, and that increased metabolism will essentially burn more fat. Most people actually don't really consume enough protein, depending on the individual, really. But at the end of the day, you want to make sure you have those protein levels nice and high. So a lot of reasons why people have low protein intake is because they don't realize that they need to be consuming protein. Take, for instance, breakfast. A lot of people think a healthy breakfast would simply just be a banana, a bowl of oatmeal, and like a coffee, okay, a glass of water. Well, essentially they're missing fats and proteins on that one. They're basically just consuming carbohydrates. When you just consume carbohydrates, yeah, you're missing the other three big macronutrients, and that's what we want to avoid. So increasing your protein intake is going to be hugely important for any new endeavor with respects to taking on a new nutrition profile or nutrition habits. Increasing fat intake. So in this case here, 30% is also somewhat hard for most people, because adding fat doesn't seem natural. So adding a little bit of olive oil, adding a little bit of avocado to your daily routine is something that doesn't really come naturally, but it's something that we definitely need. It'll also increase your level of satiety, so you'll feel fuller, and you'll also be increasing the ability to produce essential hormones for men. That's testosterone; for women, that's estrogen. And you tend to usually decrease your carbohydrate consumption when you increase your protein and fat consumption. And when you decrease your carbohydrate consumption, that reduces insulin levels. You reduce insulin levels, you're no longer storing, and now you're expending, okay, more glycogen and more glucose. So therefore, you're less likely to store fat. These are all things that we really, really, really want to focus on. So this also, at the end of the day, requires a ton of discipline and some monitoring. So you can't just decide, okay, I'm going to lose weight today, I'm just going to stop eating. No, wrong. Stop. Full stop. Follow what we have here. Make sure you get your macros. Make sure that you actually know what you need to eat throughout the course of the day, and use that FPT method as your baseline. So moving forward from here, where do we go? Oops. Lastly, we have nutrient density. So for our nutrient density, essentially this is quality over quantity. We want to ensure that we have the best foods going into our body at all times. Just think, this is the most important thing you do every day. If you can have that mantra in the back of your head that the most important thing I do every day is put food in my body, you're going to have a totally different outlook of what you actually buy and what you put in your face. This is something that I live by, and it's only been the last few years that it actually really came to fruition, that I realized that this was something that I need to take into consideration and not just eat for the sake of eating. So here's just a brief list of some superfoods. And if you're already a client of mine, you'll already have a list of 21 superfoods, but essentially you can see there's a wide variety of colors, and that's what we want to get in your diet. You want to ensure that you have the highest quality food at all time. There's another mantra that I like saying, that's pay the farm now or pay the farm later, but farm is spelled differently. So pay the farm now, so FARM, or pay the farm later, PHARM, means essentially if you're not getting that good food into you now, you're going to be paying for it later by paying big pharma for the pills and all the drugs you're going to have to take. So lastly, avoid the middle aisles of the supermarket. When you go to the store, everything that's packaged and that's a product tends to be in the middle. Unless you need like spaghetti sauce and stuff like that, stay away from the stuff that are actually in boxes. What this means is that you're going to have to learn how to cook. If you can do that, you're already ahead of the game. So on the exterior of the supermarket, you tend to have all the fresh fruit, veggies, meats, milk, eggs, etc., butter. As soon as you go in the middle, that's where you get like the variety of different colors of like high fructose corn syrups and all kinds of different products that don't necessarily have the highest nutrient value and don't bring you the same amount of punch or bang for your buck, as opposed to getting high quality meats and high quality fats in the grocery store. So those are some things to consider when going shopping. And if you do want a copy of that 21 Superfoods PDF, please feel free to message me, and I'll gladly send it off to you guys. So that pretty much wraps up what we're going over today. So let's just do a quick recap. So when you're setting out your goals, always start with a SMART goal and establish a baseline and adjust your caloric needs based on the level of difficulty that you're willing to accept. So like I said, if you're an athlete, you're going to be going hard. You're going to be measuring your calories basically every day. And that's going to take a lot of effort. Most people will fall into level 1, which is basically the FPT method. So fist, palm, thumb. Know your macros. So essentially, always get the right proportion of food every day. And using the fist, palm, thumb method is an awesome way to do that. It's built essentially exactly for that. So there takes all the guesswork out of your nutrition profiles, and then focus on quality of food to increase satiety and overall health. So if you can manage those 4 things and basically ensure that you get the highest quality foods in the right proportion at all times, everything else is going to fall in. Now, you can then go into the nitty gritty of certain nutrients that you don't want to get, or I should say certain additives to foods that you don't want to get. And that's an important distinction. Always go for the fortified position before the sniper in the trees. Okay. It will have a much better effect than trying to go after those small little details first. Go after the big ones and you'll be good to go. All right, guys, thanks for listening. I appreciate it. Don't forget, check me out on davemorrow.net, or check out the podcast episodes that are being dropped on the hardtokillpodcast.com. You can also check out my blog at davemorrow.net/blog. All right, guys, take care. Have a good night.